I'm going to turn the recording on. My name is Shyla Glavin. I am the training manager with IAP2 USA. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate everyone's participation and listening in on today's webinar. We have Stephanie and Sylvia from Connect the Dots here. We are so grateful to them to join us. I'm going to do a quick share of my screen really quick. I think everybody should be able to see that. I want to do a shout out to our sponsor, Granicus. Granicus is the global leader in customer engagement and experience technology and services for the public sector, now powering almost 30 billion digital interactions globally each year and connecting over 500,000 government professionals with 300 million opt-in subscribers. Granicus is proud to serve as a critical strategic partner to governments as they work to deliver equitable and secure government experiences. With comprehensive cloud-based solutions for communications, government website design, meeting and agenda management software, records management, and digital services, Granicus empowers stronger relationships between government and constitutions across the US, Canada, Latin America, the Caribbean, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. By simplifying interactions and communicating critical information, Granicus brings governments closer to the people they serve, driving meaningful change for the communities around them. Sorry, I haven't read that in a while, but that's just a little bit about Granicus. I actually want to do a quick poll as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Do a quick poll. If everybody could just take a quick minute, if you're interested in receiving more information about Granicus, oh, failed to launch poll. Oh, there we go. The poll has been launched. So if you guys could just take a second or two to just answer the question, I'll leave it open. All right, wonderful. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Stephanie. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Let me share my screen. Oh. All right, can everyone see my screen? Not. Okay, thumbs up. Amazing. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I see all sorts of time zones reflected in the participants, so we really appreciate you joining, whether you're from the East Coast, Midwest, mountains, or the West Coast. So thank you all for being here. We're really excited to share more about this project that we won an award for last year. We won the Creativity and Innovation Award, and just reflect a little bit more about how we approach the engagement process. So today with me, my name is Stephanie Fuentes, and I'm a project manager at Connect the Dots, and I'm joined by my colleague, Sylvia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Sylvia Garcia, Managing Principal with Connect the Dots, and also project manager for this project a couple of years ago.
So a little bit about the project context. This was a series of series of engagement that occurred, but the Roundhouse was designed to inspire a professional, community service-oriented police department. However, in the 60 years following, it became to symbolize brutalities of urban renewal and discriminatory policing practices in Philadelphia. So with it, a lot of heavy context. And we have a video that helps to show an overview of the whole project.
Today, awaken those who are happy or asleep. We are the change makers, keeping time with our heartbeats, breaking barriers with our brilliant minds. We speak life, then we put it into action. Because when we speak right, there's nothing left to question. Today, our conversations hold cures, our tongues administer truth, our actions, the treatment, our focus, the root. We are doctors without borders, immersed in possibility. We'll exact a formula that only the collective can provide and show them how to get it done when ego steps aside.
Are people having issues with audio?
Uh, Stephanie, yeah, I am not hearing. I am just able to read the boxes.
Okay.
It looks like we're getting a lot of thumbs up. So thank you, everyone.
Not sure why.
We can keep going while we have the captions on the screen. The audio is basically like ambient music, and then when we move into the interviews, we can see how it's working. Yeah, audio's not working yet.
I'm going to try resharing my screen and see if it hopefully helps the issue.
Art and design. And I'm one of the two teams that are co-leading engagement for the Roundhouse to try and see what it's going to become, but in doing so, getting all and as many people and the voices of the community that we can gather to contribute to what the consensus is for what the Roundhouse should be. I would like to see the space become a community resource. I would like us to take our financial resources that we're going to spend to build this space and actually invest that into the community.
Yeah, I would like to see a lot of organizations kind of collab and come together as one and kind of take hold of that opportunity.
I would like to see the Roundhouse become a multifaceted community center.
I hope they rehab it to all the needs that it has to keep it as a functioning building, but whatever it is, either through artwork or plaques or real people who can pass on that knowledge from the past, I hope that stays.
What I would like to see is it to become a center for healing and a real model for how to make a building work for its community and for our city. What I think you should do with the Roundhouse is knock it down.
It's really up to the residents of Chinatown. I think they're the ones that live the closest to the Roundhouse. So maybe something like a cultural center that helps the community really feel heard and validated as long-term residents.
I'm sorry to say this out loud. This is Kelly. For whatever reason, the audio has gone out again.
Yeah, thank you for that. Maybe I can do like a small narration. It's mostly on the screen, but it's just a summary of all the different tactics that were utilized to conduct the engagement process throughout that year-long engagement project. So on the screen, you were seeing few pictures and video footage of the mural that were used, the podium, youth ambassadors that were also part of it. And we'll talk more about it in detail in a minute. Apologies again for the technical difficulties. We promised it was working. But yeah, that's basically a summary. Either way, we'll be sharing a share kit with you all, and the video is part of that share kit. So you can sit in your phone, in your laptop, full video HD after the session. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, apologies for that. So let's get back to the beginning. How did this opportunity even come about? How did we get involved with this project? So there was the redevelopment of another building in Philadelphia that was going to be the new home of the police department. And so this building was going to become evacuated, and there was an opportunity for the city to pursue redeveloping it. So the Roundhouse initially was opened in 1963, in the same year that the Philadelphia City Planning Commission released the 1963 Plan for Center City. The plan included a proposal to encircle Center City with expressways, which ended up being built on 3 sides of the city, including Vine Street Expressway that cut through the center of Chinatown and basically bisected Chinatown. You can see that on the top of the map. The Roundhouse, the Vine Street Expressway, and the construction of the Pennsylvania Convention Center displaced and disrupted a large number of residents and businesses in Chinatown and adjacent communities. Today, the Roundhouse is surrounded by parking lots, highway ramps, and wide streets. So now this was an opportunity for the Roundhouse to better serve the community and perhaps remedy some of the harm that was caused by this urban renewal. So the process of engagement was intended to start with active and intentional listening. The vision for the building was formed by the effort of the architects and an Estonian American engineer, August Commandant. The building was one of the first in the US to be constructed using this innovative Dutch system that had prefabricated concrete panels that were then assembled on site. So the police eventually moved. Their initial location was actually at City Hall. And with this move into the Roundhouse, it helped to create distance between the politics and the police force. And ideally, it was constructed with a large front entry plaza meant to welcome the community. The lived experience changed very much from that ideal initial idea. Though the police department very quickly added a concrete perimeter within 10 years of completion of the construction of the building, which negated the intent of that welcoming experience. And the police entrance was closed from that welcoming plaza to the back. So people had to enter through the rear parking lot. And additionally, some people felt that the shape of the roundhouse evoked the shape of handcuffs. The architects have since claimed that this was never a notion factored into the design. But in the minds of many Philadelphians, the roundhouse is associated with brutal and biased police practices. And this became a flashpoint location during many of the Black Lives Matter protests 2020. And a lot of conflicts with police occurred, such as in this photo. So it brings us to today. The process, of course, has moved a lot slower than what the project predicted. The police have moved to a new location. They're in a completely different building. So this building rests vacant still with an opportunity to be redeveloped. The police moved to the new location in 2021, and engagement for this project, the one that we were involved with, occurred between June and December of 2022, both in person and virtual. And in 2024, the Historical Commission voted against preserving the Roundhouse as part of the city's register of historic places, which means it could potentially be completely destroyed or demolished by its developer. And as I said before, the building still remains vacant. So now we get to, how did we actually create the engagement? Sylvia.
Yeah, well, given this context, let's jump into the engagement per se. As Stephanie highlighted, there was a lot of traumatic stories related to the site. You can imagine that not only for people that were detained in that location, but also for people that were working and living around the building and the site itself. So how do we connect that context into the creativity and innovation conversation that we're having today? So I would like to start with saying that creativity for this project and how we approach it at Connect the Dots is creativity with purpose. We use creativity as a tool for access. So at Connect the Dots, we use creativity not only for its own sake, but also as a tool to make engagement more accessible. So that people from different backgrounds and lived experiences feel welcome to contribute to the engagement process. The intention of the engagement process was twofold. One was to collect stories related to the past of the site, to acknowledge what had happened, and also to envision the future. You know, it's like, okay, there's an opportunity for redevelopment. So what the space should look like? The intention was, again, to focus on what you partially saw on the video, which was about envisioning the future. So the innovation piece was about inclusion as well. For us, innovation and engagement means designing experiences that meet people where they are, whether that's through interactive activities, workshops, playful resources, etc. Just making sure, ensuring that they're those voices are included in the process. We're usually thinking about young people. We're thinking about people that might not feel comfortable in, open spaces where they might feel exposed to share this kind of traumatic experiences. So moving into the approach that we have on the screen, this is something that you might find available in our website as well. But we wanted to highlight it here because it was an important piece of how we approach this specific project from the lens of creativity and innovation. There's like a few components, but I want to highlight two. One is the layer engagement. We'll see more of that on the next slide, but it's like, how do we how do we combine different ways or layers to connect with people? It was not only one way to connecting with people and gathering these stories and visions of the future, but multiple ways that were at the end combined into one only analysis. And the other was like adjusting or tailoring to the local context that require a lot of iteration, right? We didn't get it right the first time, and we were, aware of that. So we had like a planning process that we call at Connected Dots Phase Zero. And then after that, the whole process was iterative in nature, right? Because we needed to adjust depending on how people responded to it. In the next slide, we see a summary of how the layers look like for this specific project. We had like different intentions or different moments. One was like spreading the word about what was happening. Then we were collecting the stories and the visions for the future. And then we were sharing back the results of the process. So for each of these intentions or moments in the project, we had multiple layers of ways to connect with people. In the next slides, I will go into the details of some of them, and you will see that all of these different tools, tactics, methods were or are listed here in terms of if they were like using using a verbal approach, tactile, digital, or collaborative, or multiple at the same time. So let's do a deep dive into the first one. So to amplify voices, we had a podium. The podium was designed as a space to elevate, literally and figuratively, community voices. So it was a hands-on activity that really encouraged movement and created this physical embodied experience. This made it especially effective for kinesthetic learners because you could feel the podium. It was extremely heavy, so you could feel it, you can stand up on it. And the activity also was collaborative because it offered prompt questions and also QR code for encourage people to record audio or video, record their messages and share them with friends, with family, and social media. So the idea of this was to, yes, amplify voices, but let them choose between sharing or just doing it for themselves in the moment. So this was something that was self-activated, or also we brought it when possible for in-person events. So that's one way that we utilize. The next one was about bringing community ideas to life, and we did it through drawing and sketching activity, where participants responded to ideas by illustrating how they envision the future of the site. So if you can see on the screen, there's like a small drawing, high-level sketch of the building and the site, not only the building, but also the site. So this could be done independently. It could be done collaboratively using markers or crayons or pens. And the idea was to support visual learners in processing their thoughts. It's important to highlight that this was accessible and engaging for a wide range of ages. And it also served as both a conversation starter and a quiet, discreet way for participants to enter the project theme kind of brain space. Some people can be really open about their thoughts and their experiences. Some others might not be. So this was like a way to start in a more discreet way. The next one that we want to highlight is how we share community stories. So you learn from the video that this site is located immediately next to Chinatown. And given the context that Stephanie was sharing, there's a deep connection with the Chinatown. So we use for sharing community stories Chinese lanterns. It was an art-based activity designed to honor stories connected to the site, and participants shared their individual stories, which together created a collective narrative. So you can see a picture in there of the sidewalk in front of the site, and then the trees, and then the Chinese lanterns hanging from there. Youth ambassadors This one, it's about representation and how and why representation matters. So the engagement with youth was facilitated directly through youth themselves. Youth leaders implemented the same tactics, the pop-ups, the drawing activity, the podium, the same activities, same design, just different delivery staff. They collected the stories, the aspirations, and it was made more accessible and more meaningful by having representation facilitate those conversations. And two more that we wanted to share with you. This one was tactile and also collaborative. It was a collective mural. So we had like multiple 3 by 3 feet canvases that were brought to in-person events. You saw some of those in the video footage. Participants were invited to respond to prompt questions, again, about the past and the future of the site. And the activity was colorful, was creative, was fun, was inviting for broader participation. And each piece of canvas was brought not only to one event, but for multiple events in person across youth and non-youth facilitated events. And it was extremely powerful because at the end of the project, all canvases were combined into a mural and exhibited outside of city council chambers, telling a whole shared story of what people envision for the site. And the last one is because we know that not everything happens in person. We try to replicate this mural into digital format. We use a platform that some of you might know. It's called Padlet. And it was hosted on the project website and also accessed via QR codes at events and outreach materials. So it was the same prompt questions, and the goal was to replicate the mural just digitally. People was able to write, to post pictures, add voice notes, links, etc. And the participants responded to this again about the past and the future of the site. This was also verbal. Again, people, some of them added voice notes. And well, the input from all different tactics was collected at the end, was organized, coded, analyzed to feed directly into the final report. Back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you. So in a moment, the group will be divided into 4 smaller groups to help explore further those ideas of verbal, tactile, digital, and collaborative tactics that you've used in previous engagement projects. So Shyla's going to help with dividing the room randomly. And so when you're in the room, we ask that you take a moment to introduce yourself and then just begin to share with each other, recall back to projects that you've completed, that you've worked on, that, relate to whichever format that your room is assigned. So if you're in the verbal room, mention, oh, we used this tactic and it was really powerful, or you know what, I'm in the digital room and I really haven't utilized the digital format as much in my engagement practice. So Sylvia and I will also be bouncing around and just to peek into the conversation. We'll have 15 minutes in the breakout session and then we'll reconvene, and we want to hear what you find interesting, what you've heard from your peers within those groups. So Shyla will do the magic and split everyone into the rooms.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, everybody should be able to join into a room. Stephanie and Sylvia, you are not.
It seems that we can choose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Amazing. Thank you.
We had a few people drop off.
Okay.
I'm not sure we're right at that 30-minute mark, which, some people might have to jump into a meeting or something, or maybe they got scared of a breakout. I'm not sure, but
all good.
Still here. Maybe you're just listening or walked away. You should be able to accept the breakout room invite and head into your breakout room.
All right, I'm going to start visiting the rooms.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll start from the bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
Jessica?
Hi there. I was in earlier and I had to step away for a bit.
It's okay.
Um,
Were you part of a breakout room? Because that's where everyone is right now.
no, I wasn't.
Okay, that's fine. I'll just go ahead and move you into one for they're gonna be in there for like 2 more minutes. Is that okay?
oh yeah, or I can just wait till everybody comes back. That's
Okay.
fine with
Okay,
you.
that sounds good. Yeah. So
Okay,
we've
thanks.
got about like 2 minutes until everyone
Okay,
come back on.
thank you.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. How did it go? We're curious to hear what stood out to you, what inspired you. So let's take about 10 minutes here and feel free to unmute yourself and share an example that you heard from the peers in your group of what stood out to you or what idea would you like to take into your practice? Let's have someone share from the verbal group. Who was in the verbal group? If anyone would like to share an example that they heard that they enjoyed.
I'll try to share. I kind of took away that there were a lot of good examples of what people did, but the kind of overall points that I took from that, and hopefully somebody else from my group will join in, maybe with specific examples, but having small groups and time for more, uh, to allow people to kind of more personally interact with each other was really important. And the other one was figuring out ways to make time so that you're not on a schedule and a meeting agenda, but you're making space for storytelling and again that kind of more personal elements. There are ways to take notes on that and gather it into some kind of data, but nonetheless, it will be more meaningful for people who have a lot of storytelling traditions, especially.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Great takeaway from that group. I'd love to hear from those that were in the tactile room. Anything that stood out to you from those that were there? Feel free to unmute yourself.
So I was in the tactile group and I was just sharing that my name's Theodora and I'm in Los Angeles. And I was sharing that most of my work involves contractors, community residents, and unions. I didn't mention the unions, but unions are very much part of our work. And so we don't have to get the kind of buy-in and support that our projects consistently need. It's best for us to, for lack of a better word, press the flesh. So we've done some Zoom stuff over the years, primarily during the pandemic. But as soon as, what do you call it? Things opened up, it's been consistently better to do in-person community outreach meetings because, again, the policies in the past have not been user-friendly. I mean, oh, and or the execution has consistently ignored communities' preferred or stated objectives. So I was saying also that a lot of times, historically, the owners in Southern California, which is primarily where, our work is performed, have relinquished responsibility for community engagement to contractors, the general contractor particularly. And that's not what contractors do. And so communities have been left behind, have been ignored, and or just not been treated the way that community residents would prefer. So for us, collaborative, tactile, verbal, anything that it provides opportunities to press the flesh, to let folks know, um, that they're being listened to, they're being heard, they're being acknowledged, and then preferably, if feasible, their suggestions are being adopted. Those go a long way than any razzle dazzle, digital platform format, presentation, any kind of doodah you want to present, you want to show out there, wouldn't work. Wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And this does and this applies to all communities, whether they are, you know, uh working class or, the wealthiest communities in Southern California. They all, when they're saying something, when they're invested or interested in any aspect of construction that's happening that they feel would impact them in any way, um, yeah, they need direct um, engagement.
Thank you, Theodora. Yes, so you recall or you bring back the point of it's important to match the tactic with the context of the community. So with that in mind, I'd love to hear from the digital room. There were a lot of great ideas at the time when I popped in of digital tools that have helped in the engagement process. So if anyone wants to volunteer from that group.
I'll volunteer. I introduced myself and I have not been, this is the first I've ever been to one of the IAP2 seminars. And so I just asked a lot of questions in my group and they were so helpful at sharing some successes that they've had and a lot of great tools that they've used for digital breakout rooms. We talked a lot about hybrid and like the complications of hybrid, but also ways to be successful. And I thought one idea that was really simple, because we talked about tools you can buy, like an owl and different things like that. But if you are like a small local government and you don't have a lot of money, a simple idea that Adriana mentioned was have in-person attendees bring a laptop along open their laptop and turn their sound off and use the room audio, so that at least the people online can have a little bit better experience by seeing all of the participants. And I thought that was such a simple but effective idea to make people feel a little more included in the online space.
Definitely. I heard of some other tools that were mentioned. I forget who it was, but somebody was talking about it's also helpful to use the Zoom whiteboard feature to do collaborative work together on a board. So it's a digital space, but it can also be collaborative. So, in thinking of how we use any of these modes, we see how they also intersect with the other. They're not just solely verbal, they're not just solely tactile, but they touch many of these different ways to make connections, which is really great. And then the other one was Miro board, which is also another great digital space that people can access digitally and use asynchronously. And that's a tool that we use very often at Connect the Dots. We love it. So
They
let's
also brought up, I think,
mhm.
Padlet and Jotform
Yes.
as two other potential ones.
Yes. Padlet. Yeah, we definitely use Padlet. That Padlet was the example that we shared for this project, and we still use it because it's a great multimedia board that people can access. So thank you, Lee. I want to hear from the last group, from the collaborative group. Any ideas that really stood out to you?
If I can jump in, I really appreciated that both Yasmin and Nicole were just talking about collaborative mapping as a way to bring people together. And Nicole, the way that she was using it, it was at the outset of any like event where people are coming, then they're using mapping as a tool for locating themselves. And I thought that's really effective because immediately you can kind of create a common foundation where everybody can see themselves, on the map and then identify themselves within the space. And then, of course, I think she can use it or was using it for shared understandings. You're talking about the vision of this space and what you're doing in conservation. But then Yasmin also talked about mapping, and I love that she also doubled it as using it as a tool for assessment. So then she could identify where there might be gaps of where different parts of her like geography, there might be representation or underrepresentation by people that she might want to be engaging. So I thought that was great. That stood out for me from my group.
Wonderful. Lots of ideas. And I see that people are adding more ideas into the chat. This is really great. So definitely peek over to the chat if you haven't yet and capture those ideas that were also shared in there. So I'm going to pass it back to Sylvia to close us out.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for your contributions. Something that I heard while going around the breakout rooms is that tactics or methods utilized to engage with people doesn't need to be only one thing, like only visual or only tactile. And when you and us start like combining those different characteristics of methods to connect with people, that's when the engagement experience starts to turn into memorable, which is something that we talk about a lot at Connected Dots. How can we, yes, compensate people for their time? Yes, like create something accessible, but also like offer experiences that are memorable for participants to go back home and say like, yes, I shared my input about, I don't know, how the park will be developed or how this space will be utilized in the future, but also like remember the experience or the time that they spent talking to you during that moment. So thank you, everyone. We just wanted to highlight one last thing, which is extremely important for us, and it was like a huge component of the award that we received last year on creativity and innovation, is that creativity, I said this before, creativity with purpose. How can we utilize creativity as a tool for access? Some of our clients, some of our partners usually say like, oh guys, you're extremely creative, give me something creative. And we're like, yes, we can do that, but what for? What is the intention? What is the goal that we want to achieve? What is the challenge that we need to overcome? And that's where the creativity with purpose starts to be like really, really powerful and impactful for communities. So the next slide is just one close-up of a picture of one of our murals. It was outdoors, it was colorful, it was powerful. The prompt, well-shaped, gave us the opportunity to collect the stories from community members. So just finding pleasure on those small wins are something that we wanted to share with you all, and you'll find more in this share kit. So you'll find a combination. I said the video is in there. We promise the video is in there, so you can enjoy it fully. There's also additional resources that we put together for you about the project itself, and also one handout that Stephanie will walk us through really quickly, so you can take a look at it, and hopefully you can utilize it in your daily practice.
Yeah, so as you consider your engagement tactics, this is a really helpful list to check against, to remind ourselves, our teams, that there's also many different ways that people learn through these projects. A lot of times our projects have to share very technical information or just a lot of information. So it's helpful to consider how people learn through the different formats also of what we talked about, whether it's tactile, verbal, digital, collaborative. So this is a resource for you and for your teams to take on and use when you think about your engagement practice. With that, we close. I want to hand it back to Shyla if you have any last remarks, but otherwise, thank you so much to everybody who attended. Scan the QR code to access the share kit, and we just thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we just have a few people who may have just stepped away and haven't signed off yet, but that was great. Thank you both so very much. I will take this. I'm actually going to stop the recording.